Okay, welcome. Today we're diving into why mindfulness is the missing ingredient in your creative process.
hmm
And you know the feeling, right? You're staring at that blank page or the screen, the empty canvas.
Yeah, the blinking cursor of doom.
Totally. And the pressure's building. Maybe there's a deadline and just nothing. The ideas aren't there.
Or you're just wiped out, running on empty, wondering how you'll find that spark again. It's such a common creative struggle.
It really is. And we often just try to push harder, don't we? Like muscle through it.
Or we look everywhere else for inspiration. But what if the answer isn't really about more effort? What if it's a different approach altogether?
A fundamental shift, you mean? That sounds, well, deeper than just finding a new productivity hack or something.
Exactly. That's what we're getting into today. Mindfulness isn't some quick fix. It's about cultivating presence, awareness right there in the creative act.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So we're going to explore what the science behind this, how it actually works in the brain.
Yeah, the science, definitely. And practical tools, too, how to cut through those blocks, the distractions. And crucially, how this leads to work that feels, inspired but also sustainable.
Sustainable is key because fighting burnout constantly, that just shouldn't be part of the creative life, should it?
It really shouldn't.
Huh.
And it often starts with this simple idea: creativity unfolds now, in this moment.
But our minds are rarely now, are they? We're worrying about the deadline or stressing about how good the last thing was or wasn't.
Precisely. We're lost in the future, the past, anywhere but here. And when the mind gets caught in that stress loop, well, things get interesting inside our heads.
Okay, so what is happening then when we're stressed and trying to create?
Well, your body releases cortisol. Think of it like static on the radio line.
Okay, static.
Yeah, it dampens the signals in the brain areas you need for flexible thinking, for problem solving, for making those creative leaps. It literally disrupts your creative frequency, makes it harder to have good ideas.
So stress isn't just like unpleasant background noise, it's actively anti-creative.
That's a great way to put it. It impairs the prefrontal cortex. That's kind of the command center for creativity.
Yeah.
But, and this is the really cool part, mindfulness acts like a dynamic interference blocker.
An interference blocker, how?
Regular practice doesn't just help you manage the stress in the moment. It can actually reshape your brain's wiring over time.
Yeah.
That's neuroplasticity. It can enhance your underlying creative capacity.
Reshaping the brain. Wow. Where does that happen? Which parts are changing?
Key areas. First, that prefrontal cortex we mentioned, it becomes more active, better connected. It's like upgrading your brain's ability to shift gears smoothly, between intense focus and letting your imagination roam free.
Okay, so better focus and more flexibility. That makes sense. What else?
Then there's something called the default mode network, or DMN. This is often active when your mind wanders, kind of linking up distant ideas, daydreaming.
The mind-wandering network. Sometimes useful, sometimes not.
Exactly. Mindfulness helps bring some balance. It's not about shutting down the DMN, but cultivating, let's say, mindful mind wandering, letting the mind explore, but staying sort of gently aware. That sweet spot between focus and imagination, that's often where breakthroughs happen.
Okay, letting it roam, but keeping a loose tether. I get that.
And third, the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC. Think of this as your brain's spotlight operator. It helps you direct your attention and notice when it's drifted off somewhere else.
Like regaining focus after you zone out.
Precisely. Strengthening the ACC through mindfulness makes you better at intentionally directing your focus toward your creative task.
So better decisions, flexibility, balanced idea generation, and stronger focus control. That's quite the upgrade for a creator.
It really is. And understanding this science gives us concrete ways to tackle some of the biggest hurdles, like that relentless inner critic.
Ugh, the inner critic, yeah. That voice that whispers doubt or demands impossible perfection.
Exactly. It fuels perfectionism by worrying about some impossible future ideal, or it fuels self-doubt by dwelling on past comparisons or failures. Both pull you right out of the present moment.
And creativity only happens now.
Right. Mindfulness offers practical tools to anchor you back here, where you can actually do the work.
Okay, like what can you do in the moment?
Simple grounding techniques are great.
Yeah.
Before you even start, maybe do a quick body scan. Just notice sensations, head to toe. It pulls your awareness right into your physical self here and now instead of getting tangled in thoughts about what might go wrong.
Grounding in the body. Makes sense. What about the thoughts themselves, the critical ones?
You could try mindful mantras. A simple phrase like creating now, or even just this moment. When that critic starts piping up, gently repeat the mantra internally. It shifts your focus from the criticism to the simple act of making something right now.
That feels very actionable. What if you're feeling completely overwhelmed like deer in headlights?
Sensory grounding can be powerful then. The 5-4-3-2-1 technique is a good one. When you feel that overwhelm rising, deliberately notice 5 things you can see around you.
Okay.
Then 4 things you can physically feel, different textures. Then 3 distinct sounds you can hear. Identify 2 different smells. And finally, maybe taste one thing, sip of water, whatever.
Pulls you right back into your immediate senses.
Instantly. It interrupts that stress spiral. And these are things you can do right at your desk. You don't need to go off and meditate for an hour.
That's important for creative work, isn't it? Quick interventions.
Absolutely. Well, longer practice builds the foundation. You need tools for the moment. That's where micro practices come in. Tiny moments of awareness woven into your day.
Like
A threshold ritual. Simple as taking 3 conscious breaths before you open your laptop or pick up your tool. It's like a little signal to your brain. Okay, time to be present, time to create. A mini reset.
I like that. And our environment, our physical space, does that play a role?
Oh, huge. Your space totally affects your ability to be present and focused. Creating a space that supports mindful creativity, maybe minimizing clutter, having a few inspiring objects, even just designating a specific spot tells your brain this is where focused work happens.
Little cues.
Yeah, even something like having natural light if possible, or a simple object like a smooth stone on your desk can act as a reminder, a visual anchor to just come back to the present.
So it's about building these little habits, these consistent moments, not necessarily forcing massive blocks of perfect concentration.
Exactly that. And research shows you can see measurable brain changes in like 8 weeks of regular practice, even with relatively short sessions. It's like training any muscle. And remember, your body isn't just a taxi for your brain.
Right.
Noticing physical sensations while you work, the feel of the keyboard, the pressure of the pencil, the rhythm of your breathing that also anchors you and can deepen your engagement with the task itself.
Okay, so we've got the science, some grounding tools. But what about, well, the modern world? The constant notifications, emails, social media pings. It feels like our focus is under constant attack.
You're absolutely right. It's a massive challenge for almost everyone, especially creators. And get this, research suggests that after each interruption, it can take over 20 minutes to fully get back into that deep, focused, creative concentration.
20 minutes per interruption. That's huge. Why so long?
When you switch tasks, even just for a second to glance at your phone, your brain has to kind of reconfigure. And even when you try to switch back, part of your brain is still chewing on that distraction. It's called attention residue.
Attention residue, like mental clutter left over.
Exactly, like hidden apps running in the background, slowing everything down, which is why multitasking is just, well, it's particularly damaging for deep creative work.
Fundamentally, yeah.
Think about the brain states. Distracted is scattered, high cortisol. Mindful is more coherent, calmer, lower cortisol. That difference translates directly to the quality of your ideas, surface level versus deeper insights, and better memory for connections too. And then, of course, there's flow state.
The zone, that elusive flow state. How does mindfulness help us get there?
Well, consistent mindfulness practice strengthens that ACC, the brain's spotlight operator we talked about.
Right, the attention director.
It makes you better at switching fluidly between that intense focus needed for the task and a more open, receptive awareness. Flow requires both that balance of concentration and relaxed openness.
So it's about working with how our brain actually functions, not against it.
Precisely. And our brains naturally operate in cycles too, roughly 90-minute cycles of high focus, followed by dips where we need recovery. This isn't just some productivity guru's idea, it's biological.
Yeah.
Honoring that rhythm can be transformative.
Okay, give me an example. How does this play out practically?
Right, imagine you're deep in a creative session, maybe hitting that 90-minute peak. Suddenly, your phone lights up on the desk beside you. If it's right there, easily accessible. The urge hits, you glance, you pick it up.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, you enter that compulsion loop, the urge, the checks, a little dopamine hit, maybe an endless scroll. Boom, 20 minutes minimum loss to attention residue, even if you only looked for 30 seconds.
Okay, scenario 2.
Same situation, but your phone is maybe on silent, in another room, or tucked away. You might still feel the urge to check it. But because you've practiced mindfulness, you notice the urge, you acknowledge it, there's that impulse, and you gently guide your attention back to your work. The difference isn't superhuman willpower. It's a combination of smart environmental design and trained awareness.
That focus sanctuary idea again, setting up your space.
Yes, your workspace should cue deep work. Intentional lighting, maybe noise-canceling headphones, minimizing visual distractions. These things signal to your brain it's focus time. Think about writers who have little rituals, lighting a candle, specific music, taking those few mindful breaths.
But not just quirks, they're priming the brain.
Exactly. They create what psychologists call implementation intentions, bridging that gap between wanting to focus and actually doing it. And you don't have to ditch technology entirely, obviously. It's about cultivating technological mindfulness,
Meaning.
understanding the attention cost of different inputs,
Right.
essential communication. Okay, medium cost, maybe batch process it at set times. Social media, very high cost, definitely schedule it, maybe outside peak creative hours, creative tools themselves. Lower cost, protect that time. News feeds, usually high cost, low value for creative output. Be really strict with that.
That framework helps you be intentional instead of just reacting all the time.
Yes. And building focus is a skill, remember.
Yeah.
Like training a muscle. Maybe start with shorter focus, blocks the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes on, 5 off is great for this, and gradually build up towards those longer, maybe 90-minute deep work sessions. Teams can even do this, setting deep work hours with no interruptions.
So the aim isn't like never get distracted because that's impossible.
No, perfect unbroken focus is pretty much a myth for most people. The real goal is strengthening your attention awareness, noticing sooner when your mind has wandered off, and gently, non-judgmentally, guiding it back to your creative work. Every time you do that, you're strengthening those neural pathways for sustained attention. It's a continuous practice.
Okay, we've hit focus hard.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a paradox earlier that sometimes mind wandering is actually good for creativity. How does that work?
Yes. That brings us back to the default mode network, the DMN. The crucial difference is between intentional incubation and just mindless distraction.
Intentional incubation.
Yeah, like scrolling Instagram is usually just scattershot distraction, right? But stepping away from your desk for a mindful walk, that can actually be productive contemplation.
Productive contemplation. Tell me more.
It's about allowing your mind space to process creative problems non-linearly without actively trying to force a solution. This often happens during light, physical activity. Walking is classic, gardening, washing dishes even. Movement releases chemicals that support both relaxation and mental clarity. Ideas can just sort of bubble up when your conscious, effortful mind takes a back seat.
So those aha moments in the shower or on a walk aren't just random luck.
Not at all. That's often your DMN doing its thing in the background, making connections your focused mind might miss. The key during these incubation periods is to maintain a state of open monitoring.
Open monitoring.
It's a kind of relaxed awareness. You notice thoughts, feelings, sensations as they arise, but without latching onto them, judging them, or getting carried away. You're just openly aware.
How do you actually cultivate that space? It feels like every moment is filled these days.
You have to intentionally create opportunities for it. Schedule short walks between focus sessions. Maybe keep a notebook handy to jot down any sparks. But don't force them. And importantly, resist the urge to constantly fill every gap with input podcasts, news, email. Your brain genuinely needs quiet downtime to synthesize information.
So silence and space aren't just breaks. They're actually creative fuel.
Precisely. You could even use something like a mindful observation journal. Briefly track when you feel most focused, what tends to trigger distractions for you, what environments feel supportive. That self-awareness becomes a powerful guide, and regular mindfulness practice in general increases your comfort with just mental spaciousness, being okay with not being constantly on.
This feels really connected to tackling creative blocks, which often feel like a big, empty, stuck space.
They absolutely are connected. Creative blocks often follow patterns, and mindful awareness is brilliant at illuminating those patterns. What feels like just being stuck is usually just the tip of the iceberg.
An iceberg.
Yeah, think of it in layers. There are the immediate symptoms, frustration, inability to start. Then underlying that are often emotional triggers, fear, self-doubt, pressure. And beneath that can be deeper belief patterns, maybe about perfectionism or not being good enough.
And typical advice often just tackles the surface, right? Like just take a break or change your scenery.
Which might offer temporary relief, sure, but it doesn't get to the root cause. Lasting resolution usually requires looking at all three layers through that lens of mindful awareness. I remember working with a designer who kept stalling on finishing projects. Through mindful observation, she realized her perfectionism wasn't just about high standards. It was deeply rooted in a fear of criticism stemming from childhood experiences. That awareness was the key to shifting her approach.
So mindfulness helps uncover the why behind the block, not just the what.
Exactly. You can do a kind of mindful audit, regularly pause, maybe just for a minute, and document your state without judgment. Notice, what am I feeling physically? What emotions are present? What thoughts are looping? What's my environment like? This shifts blocks from being enemies you fight to being, well, messages. Messages carrying important information.
Messages about what?
Often about opportunities for growth or adjustments needed in your process. Is a block really about perfectionism? Or is it maybe imposter syndrome, analysis paralysis, or even just burnout disguised as a lack of ideas? Mindful observation helps you diagnose the patterns so you can respond more effectively, maybe with self-compassion or some reality testing or just taking a proper break.
So instead of battling the block, you investigate it with curiosity. How do we use mindfulness in the moment when we feel that wall go up?
Using targeted interventions can create space between the trigger feeling stuck and your usual reactive pattern, like frustration or giving up. The RAIN method is a really powerful framework for this.
Rein in. Okay, what's that stand for?
R is for recognize. Just acknowledge what's happening. Okay, I'm feeling stuck right now. Name it without judging it or trying to immediately fix it. Just bring awareness to it.
Recognize. Got it.
A is for allow. Allow the experience, the stuckness, the frustration to just be there for a moment. Resistance often just makes the block feel denser. Acceptance, paradoxically, can create the space for things to shift.
Allow it to be there.
Right. Is for investigate. Gently explore the block with curiosity, not judgment. Where do you feel it in your body? What specific thoughts are coming up? What does the stuckness actually feel like? Sometimes surprising insights pop up here.
Investigate with curiosity. And N.
N is for nurture. Offer yourself some compassion, just like you would a friend who is struggling. Maybe some gentle self-talk. This is tough right now. Or perhaps use one of those grounding techniques we talked about.
Recognize, allow, investigate, nurture, rein. That's a very concrete process to try.
It is. And don't forget movement strategies. Your body holds a lot of wisdom. And sometimes physical stagnation mirrors mental stagnation. A mindful walk, some simple stretches, even just shaking out your limbs, anything that acts as a physical reset button can help shift that stuck energy.
This really sounds like building long-term resilience, not just putting out fires when blocks hit.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What you're developing is mindful self-awareness, better emotional regulation, and cognitive flexibility, that ability to shift perspective when you're challenged. It involves regular check-ins, maybe starting the day with breath work, taking brief mindful resets between tasks, a quick reflection at the end of the day. You're building a sustainable internal framework.
And sometimes blocks they feel pretty deep-rooted, don't they?
They certainly can be. Working with persistent blocks might involve exploring those deeper, perhaps unconscious patterns. Practices like mindful journaling, where you just write freely about the feeling of resistance, or even just sitting quietly with the feeling, allowing it space, can sometimes surface surprising insights. It connects back to allowing that default mode network, that associative part of the brain, space to work its magic.
Does connection with others play a role here too?
Oh, huge. Mindful creativity often thrives in community. Connecting with other creators, sharing experiences honestly, maybe even forming mindful feedback circles where critique is given and received with awareness. All of this helps maintain momentum and offers fresh perspectives when you feel stuck in your own head.
So using these tools consistently, blocks start to feel less like walls and more like signposts.
Exactly. They become catalysts for deeper understanding, opportunities to refine your process and expand your creative capacity. It becomes a path that spirals deeper into possibility rather than a constant battle.
Which brings us to that other huge challenge, burnout. How do we keep the inspiration flowing without just running ourselves into the ground?
Think of your creative energy less like a bank account you just keep drawing from, and more like a garden. It needs tending, cultivation, rest periods. How you manage your energy directly impacts your ability to create sustainably over the long haul.
A garden needs care, not just constant harvesting. I like that.
Exactly. And mindfulness directly helps here because many practices actively engage your body's rest and digest system, the parasympathetic nervous system. This lowers cortisol, counteracts the stress response, and allows your physical and mental resources to actually replenish. It's biological energy renewal.
So those mindful moments, those breaks, aren't just nice-to-haves. They're biologically essential for sustained creativity.
They absolutely are. Understanding your personal energy matrix is also key. When are your peak flow states for the really complex, demanding creative work? When are you in more of a steady state, good for refining or editing? When do you hit those low tides, maybe better for planning or admin? And when are you truly depleted and just need a full stop, a real reset? Matching your tasks to your natural energy rhythm is crucial.
Blocks could even be a signal that your energy is misaligned with the task at hand.
Often, applying that RAIN method to your energy levels can be insightful. Recognize you feel drained. Allow the feeling. Investigate. Is this just a temporary dip, or am I trying to force demanding work when I'm actually in a low energy phase? Then nurture, maybe take that break, switch to a lower energy task.
Designing a sustainable creative architecture, as you put it, sounds like it involves more than just managing a calendar.
It's really about creating an ecosystem where your time, your physical space, and your energy work together harmoniously. Identify your peak creative hours, your prime time, and fiercely protect them for your most important demanding work. Practice energy banking, proactively investing in recovery before you hit empty. A short mindful walk after a focus session, a brief meditation between projects, ensuring you get enough sleep.
And thinking beyond just the day-to-day schedule.
Absolutely. Consider things like wavelength weeks that respect your natural cycles, maybe designating certain days for deep solo work, others for collaboration, others for planning or admin, even thinking seasonally tackling major new projects when your energy feels naturally higher, using quieter seasons for reflection or skill building. It's about treating energy management with the same seriousness we often give to time management.
In this hyper-connected world, though, boundaries seem absolutely essential for protecting that energy.
Critical. Utterly critical. Beyond the focus tools we discussed, protective boundaries are what shield your energy reserves from the constant drain of notifications and the anxiety of feeling like you must always be available. This means setting external limits, saying no sometimes, managing communication expectations, but also internal boundaries with your work.
How do digital boundaries specifically help with energy?
It's not about total abstinence usually, but structured engagement. Designate specific times for checking email or social media. Maybe use app timers or blockers. Have device-free periods, especially during your peak creative hours or before bed. Create a digital sunset.
And emotional boundaries, that sounds important too.
Yes, these protect your energy from getting depleted by things like criticism, comparison, or setbacks. They help you maintain perspective and not take things quite so personally. This builds on self-compassion work, creating a little psychological space between your core identity and the work you produce, so you're not completely flattened by every external reaction.
It sounds like managing FOMO, that fear of missing out, is a big piece of this boundary setting.
It really is. FOMO is powerful. It can pull you towards exciting opportunities, absolutely, but it can also scatter your focus, drain your energy on too many things, and dilute your core creative work. The goal isn't to eliminate FOMO entirely. That's probably impossible, but to develop a healthy relationship with it. Maybe even embrace JOMO.
JOMO, the joy of missing out. I like that reframe.
It's about recognizing when FOMO is the primary driver of a decision, making intentional choices aligned with your deeper values and energy levels, setting clear boundaries on commitments, and consciously shifting from a scarcity mindset, oh no, I'm missing out on that, to more of an abundance mindset. I have what I need right here, right now, to focus on this important work.
Okay, so managing energy, setting boundaries. How do you really build creative vitality for the long haul, like over a whole career?
It's about building systems for ongoing renewal, creating a self-sustaining creative ecosystem for yourself.
Yeah.
Developing what you might call adaptive resilience, the ability to maintain inspired work even through the inevitable ups and downs, challenges, and changes life throws at you.
Adaptive resilience. How does mindfulness foster that?
By using mindful energy tracking, you get better at spotting depletion patterns before you crash and burn. You can plan for strategic recovery, choosing activities that genuinely replenish your specific creative energy, not just distract you. This might mean physical rest, like prioritizing sleep, but also mental rest periods where you allow ideas to integrate without forcing them, and even creative rest, engaging in activities that inspire you purely for joy without any pressure to produce output.
And does community come back into play here for long-term sustainability?
Fundamentally, mindful collaboration, finding creative partners or groups who understand and practice these principles of sustainability, building robust support systems. It enhances not only the creativity itself, but also the ability to keep going year after year without burning out.
So it seems like by weaving mindfulness into every layer, understanding the brain science, managing the inner critic, navigating distractions, tending to creative blocks, cultivating sustainable energy, you really build this incredibly solid foundation.
It absolutely transforms your whole relationship with the creative process. It shifts from feeling like a constant battle or something you have to wrestle into submission into more of, well, a dance. That perceived boundary between you, the creator, and the creation itself starts to soften, especially in those moments of deep presence. You begin to tap into that intuitive knowing that guides the best work.
The self-criticism starts to quiet down.
Yes, because your attention is trained more on the actual act of creation, the process itself, rather than looping on judgments about the outcome. Creative blocks transform too, from feeling like insurmountable walls to more like interesting puzzles or navigational signals, each offering a lesson about yourself or your process if you approach it with awareness.
And this isn't just a switch you flip, right? It's a journey. It has stages.
Definitely. Think of it like a spiral path, deepening over time. You might start using mindfulness reactively just to manage stress or get through a block. Then you move towards applying it more strategically, preventatively, building those focus muscles and energy reserves. Eventually, for many, it becomes less of a technique you apply and more just your natural mode of being while you're creating. That's practice maturity.
And you mentioned creative sovereignty. What's that about?
That's reaching a place of unwavering trust in your own creative intuition and inner guidance, while also having the mindful discernment to engage wisely with external input like feedback or market demands. It's not about becoming isolated, but about engaging from a grounded, centered place. There's inner sovereignty, really trusting your unique voice. Relational sovereignty, maintaining integrity in collaborations. And maybe even market sovereignty, navigating commercial realities without losing your core creative essence.
It's like the full integration of the practice and your purpose.
Exactly. The artificial separation between meditation time over here and creative time over there starts to dissolve. Every moment holds the potential for mindful creation. Your decision-making becomes guided more by deep awareness than by knee-jerk reactions or fear. You start experiencing embodied creativity, really recognizing your body not just as a tool carrier, but as an integral part of the process, reading its subtle signals about direction, energy, or resonance.
Like a sculptor feeling the resistance in the clay, or a musician feeling the vibration, or a writer sensing the right rhythm in a sentence.
Precisely that. The body becomes part of your navigational system, and developing rhythmic awareness, learning to dance with your natural creative cycles, balancing the need for linear planning with the wisdom of your cyclical energy ebbs and flows.
And ultimately, this practice, this way of being, informs your legacy.
Yeah, not just in the finished artifacts you create, but in how you create them. Maybe through sharing your experiences, mentoring others, documenting your journey, building those mindful, creative communities. Advanced techniques might emerge naturally too, like deep listening practices or even planned creative sabbaticals becoming part of a long-term, vital, sustainable practice.
Wow. It really is a path that just keeps unfolding with you.
Yes, opening into deeper dimensions of both the practice and the creative possibilities throughout your life.
So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener, listening right now? We've covered a lot: the science, the tools, handling distractions, blocks, burnout.
Well, I think it means you have access to a really powerful internal way to navigate the often choppy waters of the creative path. A way that doesn't rely on constantly battling yourself or the world outside. You can learn to sort of surf the waves instead of feeling crushed by them.
And it's not about reaching some state of perfect, constant focus or never feeling blocked or tired again, is it?
Not at all. It's really about consistent practice. It's about the willingness to return, again and again, to the present moment, even just for a breath. It's about building these skills gradually, one mindful moment, one creative session at a time.
This deep dive today, it's really just pointing towards the start of that path for you, a path of ongoing refinement, discovery, and growth within your own unique creative journey.
And maybe, just maybe, the most important thing you'll ever create isn't the finished piece, the painting, the song, the business plan, but the mindful, resilient, and aware creator you become along the way. Something to ponder as you approach your next creative moment.